Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I want to talk about something that is very, very dear to my heart and that I find incredibly interesting. And that is learning to question your own thoughts. Because the more you learn to question your own thoughts, the more you'll learn, ladies and gentlemen, that you're not actually even producing most of your own thoughts. You may think you do, but you don't. I'd like you to ask yourself right now, where do your thoughts come from? Do your own thoughts uplift you, or do they more often than not make you doubt yourself, disbelieve yourself, and have a host of depressive, it's just insane how most people's thoughts actually bring them down instead of lift them up. That's what I'm trying to say here. Now, before we continue, I'd like to say that I haven't slept much at all this week. I've had a very stressful week. Some certain things went on, and I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty. I'm just going to say that I apologize in advance if this video is kind of a little scattered, if you will. But most people's thoughts bring them down, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason why the majority of the United States population is sick, mentally imbalanced, depressed, you name it. It's largely due to thoughts. What happens with thoughts is you have them surface into your conscious mind. And if you give credit to a particular thought, it will take you in a particular direction. And if it takes you far enough into a particular direction, it usually causes your emotional field to react. And now you are reacting emotionally to it, and we know that emotions cause the body to produce energy that is either uplifting or negative. And if the energy is negative, ladies and gentlemen, you end up losing that energy. We know this through Carillion photography. We know this just based on simply living it. When you experience negative emotions, ladies and gentlemen, you feel drained. We need to get away from this idea that we need to study to prove every fucking thing in the world. It doesn't take a genius to realize that when you experience negative emotions, you feel drained. So, it is my opinion, after years of research, years of experimenting with monitoring my own thoughts, you name it, it is my opinion that a large majority of people's thoughts are actually projected into their mind from an external source, which I like to call the Archon. Many people will refer to this as Satan. I like to refer to it as the Archon. And the Archon is a great deceiver. The Archon likes you to question yourself. It likes you to question your self-worth. It likes you to question your level of ability to get things done. You name it. It wants to confuse you. Now, we're delving into a more esoteric subject here, ladies and gentlemen, but the world that we live in is highly esoteric, and just because people think that something like this can't be true doesn't mean that it isn't true. There are things outside of our perceptual blinders, folks, that would blow the average person's mind if they could glimpse them even for just a fraction of a second. We live in a highly conditioned, pampered, matrix-style, bubble-esque lifestyle. We're like pod people nowadays. It's an absolutely embarrassing joke. And part of my life's mission is to help people get out of the pod person mentality. To stop living as a pod person, where you spend most of your time indoors. You eat most of the system's garbage bullshit foods. Your magnesium's abysmally low. Your boron levels, your iodine levels are so low that, it's no wonder why people's IQ levels and why people have sluggish thoughts. And it's no wonder how the Archon, ladies and gentlemen, has been able to succeed considering people's iodine levels are so fucking low. Magnesium, iodine, boron, copper, ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the most foundational things that your body needs in order for your body to not only be healthy, but your mind as well. The body is the temple of God. It is the mansion, the flesh mansion in which the spirit resides. The body is a temporary suit that we use to navigate this dimensional realm. The spirit is you, ladies and gentlemen. It's the true you. It's the part of you that transgresses life. It's the part of you, let's put it this way, that lives on after the flesh ceases to exist, after the heart ceases to beat. And whether you want to believe it or not, but your spirit has been around forever. But we've been thrown down into this dimension in this bodysuit that's been malnourished. We've forgotten who we are, what we came here to do. We have what I call spiritual amnesia. But the iodine especially, ladies and gentlemen, there is a deliberate assault on iodine by the system at B. Yes, there's a deliberate assault on magnesium and boron and these other sacred minerals, but iodine especially. There has been a campaign to make iodine look like a horrible, dangerous supplement for the past 30 to 50 years. You see, iodine has been used, ladies and gentlemen, for a very long time. In the early 1900s, it was used. It was put in toothpaste. The master chemists of the New World Order, these master psychologists, these master chemists, the chess players that control our lives from behind the curtain, they know the importance of these sacred minerals. They know how, if they take the iodine out of the food and deplete us of this sacred mineral that regulates our thyroid health and so many other functions, that they will be able to take us out of alignment, and in doing so, make us exceptionally manageable, controllable. They can turn you into a slave by taking your energy away. Now, what produces energy? Well, to a large extent, it's your minerals. To a large extent, ladies and gentlemen, it's the quality of your blood. They've broken the human spirit and the human will by taking our body, which is the temple of God, out of homeostasis and out of alignment. It's a very simple thing to understand once you look at the bigger picture. Once you look at what has been done to the food supply, what they are putting on the crops that people eat, what they are doing to the animals that people eat. Regardless of whether you're a vegan, a vegetarian, a carnivore, an omnivore, high fruit, low carb, whatever it is, there are serious deficiencies. And there is, ladies and gentlemen, just because you're a vegan doesn't mean that you aren't harming animals. You ever fly above a major, let's just put it this way, have you ever flown from maybe California to Iowa or across the country during the day and been able to look down and you saw all the farmland that was just nothing but vegetables and greens? That was at one point sacred land, unadulterated land that was decimated. All of the animals that were living there were either ran out or killed. They killed all of the soil and plowed it so that they could raise vegetables, raise produce, raise fruit, raise corn, you name it, that was grown on NPK fertilizer, sprayed with pesticides, etc., for people to eat. The majority, I wouldn't say the majority, but a large majority of the land that has been destroyed on this earth in the United States and worldwide is for produce. It's also for animal agriculture as well, or factory farms, you name it. I'm not, denying that. But just because you're a vegan doesn't mean that you don't kill animals. It's time to wake up. We've got to look at the truth regardless of how difficult it is and regardless of how much it contradicts our belief systems about diet, you name it, and ethics, morals, you name it. I am no longer a vegan. I'm going to get into that in the near future. But the way that I'm doing it now, the way that I'm living my life, causes less harm to animals on paper. I've done the number crunching. I've looked at it. I've looked at both sides of the fence in a non-biased fashion. I've made up my mind. I know what I'm doing is the right thing to do. But let's get back on track, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about the Archon. I brought up the minerals and whatnot because, to a large extent, this is how we lose our minds. Mineral depletion. Vital nutrients are what cause our mind to be able to take in the cosmic wavelengths of the higher self. When we're broken, disassociated, you name it, we have a difficult time grasping on to higher truths. It's a very simple thing to understand. I would highly suggest getting a book called Healing with Iodine by Dr. Mark Serkis. And if you're wondering what type of iodine I use the Lugol's iodine, the J. Crow's Lugol's iodine, and I also use the Detoxidine from Global Healing Center. It's probably the best iodine on the market. I believe that Global Healing Center's Detoxidine, which is a nascent iodine, it's not a topical Lugol solution, which has potassium iodide in it. I believe that the Detoxidine, I can't speak today, I believe the Detoxidine is the world's only certified organic iodine on the market. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the truth. But I would highly suggest reading that book and consider looking into iodine supplementation. I'm not recommending that you do it, but it's just an amazing substance that is now lacking in the average American diet. You see, so many people put emphasis on protein and all this. What about the minerals that run the show that are responsible for being able to actually even utilize protein? You're deficient in these minerals. How are you going to be able to even digest food properly when they regulate these functions? So it's all relative. I talk about a handful of things in my videos on these rants because it's all relative to the main premise of my ethos, if you will, or what I'm trying to teach here, which is a fundamental message that we have been hijacked by an extra-dimensional, hyper-intelligent entity that I call the Archons. Some call it Satan, some call it the demiurge. And it is using our bodies to terraform this earth. And on top of that, it is using our bodies on a collective level as an energy farm. I've been saying for years that the earth is an energy farm. The only way you're ever going to truly understand this is when you realize that the human aura is a real thing. Kundalini proves to us that the aura is a real thing. But if the average individual could glimpse even for a second what this aura looks like, what it does to our body, and the amount of energy that it siphons into our body from the fourth and fifth dimensional realms, the aethers, you name it, they would then understand how an entity could intelligently hijack the energy field of the human body and siphon degrees of energy out of that aura for its own benefit. So the Archon intelligently hijacks our consciousness by projecting parts of its own consciousness into our minds on an omnipotent level. In an omnipotent fashion, excuse me. Now, we identify with the Archon's thoughts that it projects into our mind. We think that those thoughts are our own. This is how the ego is created, ladies and gentlemen. Many people don't know this. Many people do not know what the ego actually is. The ego is the identity that you take on when you identify with the false projections, the foreign installations of the evil one. You start to take on its nature by identifying with it. But how would you know that thoughts that are moving through your consciousness aren't yours? You've never been taught to question your own thoughts. You've always been taught that, your thoughts are your own, and it's a mentally unstable thing to question that. You might be schizophrenic. You might be mentally ill if you question your own thoughts, or if you, really try to listen to your thoughts. And if you have dark thoughts, you might be unstable. All this nonsense to take you out of alignment. Now, I engineered a protocol on how to delete these thoughts a long time ago, and I've been repeatedly posting this protocol here on the Patreon page. I got a truck passing, folks. Bear with me. Now, I call this particular exercise the Thoughtlessness Exercise. And it's an exercise that you can go back into my archives and find, but it essentially, when you engage in this, you try to completely empty your thoughts. You try to not think anything. And when you do this, you will be overwhelmed with thoughts. Now, if you're trying to control your mind, if you are actually observing your thoughts, that means that your thoughts or the thoughts moving through your mind aren't yours. If you're able to observe them, think about that for a minute. When you observe something outside of your body, is what you're observing part of you? So if you're able to observe thoughts moving through your consciousness, that means you are witnessing or experiencing or watching, like you're listening to a radio, a stream of information moving through your consciousness. Once you are able to constantly acknowledge the thoughts coming into your consciousness, even when you're not doing this exercise, just when you're walking down the street, when you're doing God knows what, when you fully become aware of this stream moving through your mind, you will be able to acknowledge them and just let them go. And the more you do this, the less these thoughts will have a grasp on you, and it'll get to a point where they are largely muted, and it will get to the point where you can fully let them go. And then and only then will you have a mind of your own. How can you have a mind of your own when you are taking in erroneous information that's being streamed into your cortex, and you're regarding that as your own thoughts when they're not your own thoughts? So the motionlessness exercise is critical, and so is the thoughtlessness exercises are critical, and so is the motionlessness exercise, ladies and gentlemen, that I talk about so much. What you're doing with these exercises is essentially freezing your overactive mind and body, and you're pausing your reactivity to everything in life. And in doing this, you're able to observe how something else, an amalgam of foreign installations from the Archon, has hijacked your neurochemistry in your consciousness and is using your body as a playground to project its erroneous bullshit into your mind, so that it can, in doing so, use you as a remote control vehicle to harvest energy out of your luminous egg, also known as your auric field, your organs, your blood, you name it. This is a spiritual war between good and evil, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not for the faint of heart. The more you start doing this stuff, there's a good chance your life might start getting more difficult. Because when the Archon becomes aware of the fact that you're aware of it, it's going to do everything in its power to stop you in your tracks, because you are now a threat to its continuity. And this is why we lean on Jesus Christ. This is why we lean on God, ladies and gentlemen. You pray to God to help you remove, or you ask God to remove the Archon or Satan's foreign installations. I should have put that first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, that prayer is the key. I've been putting much more emphasis on that lately, and I don't know why it's taken me so long. Sometimes I just forget to add these very important things, these pillars, in my videos, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Prayer, asking God to remove Satan's grasp on your mind. Satan is a deceiver. I like to call Satan the Archon, or the Demiurge, or Cosmocrator, or Adaldabaoth, or the Great One. Not that he or she is great, but it has absolutely hijacked the majority of humans here in this world. So prayer, leaning on God, asking God to shine light on where the Archon is controlling your life, and you will, with enough persistence and enough passion, if you continue to pray and do these exercises, you will start to see how there are parts of your mind that truly are not your own. You weren't designed to have depressive thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. And if you do have depressive thoughts, why do you want to hold on to them? Why can't you get rid of them? No one wants to be depressed. Is it because there is erroneous information that is being beamed into your mind? Now, I'm not saying that everything negative in your life in the form of a mental, a thought, etc., is just the Archon. Some of us took in bad information at a young age, and we've developed these core beliefs that lead to negative thoughts. But a lot of the bullshit that gets us down every day, that seems to loop in our mind continually, those are projections from the Archon. Now, the Archon has set up a scaffolding within the God grid where it takes information or energy out of our energy field and siphons it through the God grid, and it feeds itself. I don't have time to explain that. If you want to learn more about that, go watch my videos on the assemblage point, where I talk about how our energy field interacts with a larger energy field outside of our body that I call the God grid. The God grid is a vast, infinite, fourth, third, and fifth dimensional field of consciousness made up of these living strands of filaments and fibers that are aware of one another. It's all energy. But within that God grid, there is a negative grid that has been installed by the Archon that takes energy out of your energy field when you experience negative emotions, you name it. This is the foundation of alchemy, to understand that your mind has been hijacked. The alchemist's first and foremost goal is to become privy to these thoughts, so that in doing so, he or she can get rid of them through systematic prayer, exercises, potions, you name it. You see, health is not just about getting your vitamin C up, getting enough exercise, and getting enough sunlight. Plenty of people who are so-called, health gurus, that's what they do. They are missing the most important thing, and that is the sanity of the mind, the cleanliness of God's temple, the body, and the mind. What good is eating a bunch of health food if at the end of the day your mind isn't even your own? The Archon eats healthy too, ladies and gentlemen. The Archon eats too, and it's eating you as we speak. I am not here to sensationalize fear. I'm here to sound off an alarm. Alarms aren't designed to coddle your sensibilities. They're designed to snap you out of your hypnosis. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are living in a great war between good and evil. No one said this was going to be easy, and becoming conscious is incredibly debilitating to your foundation in life. It will rock your world and make you question everything. So this is not for the faint of heart. We have got to become aware of our own egos. And the ego is the false identity that we've accepted from the projections of the Archon and the culture that we live in. We use all this information around us, and we funnel it into an identity of how we interact with the world, and it's false. Our identity is with Christ, ladies and gentlemen. Our identity is with God. We are designed to live in this miraculous garden that I call Eden, in complete symbiosis with enlightened earth. But somewhere along the line, all the wrong people got the majority of the power, and they've erected their hydra-headed octopus, or hydra-headed control system. They've turned Earth into an energy farm, ladies and gentlemen. Why do you think that they've given you so many tools so that you can lose your energy? They're not trying to promote energy, they're trying to rob it. So, unfortunately, I have to go, ladies and gentlemen, in about 2 minutes. I wanted to make this longer, but it is almost time for... I've got to be somewhere. I thought it was a little bit earlier than it was, or than it is. So, the thoughtlessness exercises and the motionlessness exercises are crucial. So many people will not do them, however, and that's fine. That's just the way it is. A lot of people do not want to do the work. So, I'm going to wrap this one up, folks. Look into iodine, look into magnesium, look into boron, look into vitamin E. Look into all of these things. Recharge your battery. Your body is the temple of God. Stop treating it like shit. I love you, and until next time, peace be with you all.